Hey guys, Magpul here with Trigger Time Training in Longmont, Colorado. Now a lot of times we get class an assortment of questions, but the number one question we always get asked in regards to our carbines is how do I become quicker and more efficient? Now the issue behind that is most of us are really good with these guys. Our manual arm, our fundamentals, and our general manipulation of this weapon system is pretty spectacular. The issue is when it gets to magazine reloads and our chest rigs, we don't practice as much. Frankly, it's not as sexy. And number two, you can't just go to a public range or to a facility and start throwing on chest rigs all the time and working your skills. I understand that, but we can do a few things at the range, in the training classrooms, and at home to better and speed up our efficiency with magazine reloads. Now, first of all, let's talk about some setup when it comes to our rigs. This is an HSGI high-speed gear AO chest rig. Doesn't matter that it's high-speed gear or it's a chest rig, whether I'm wearing a plate carrier, a battle belt, a thigh rig, or some other type of carry method, the principle should still be the same. When I set this battle rig up on my chest, you'll notice it's high and firm over the breastbone. I don't want to wear it towards the belly button or too high over the clavicle bones. Obviously that would have some issues with manipulation as well as grabbing your magazines, and if it's really low it's going to slow things down and probably be a little bit more cumbersome for you. So get that thing high and firm, tight on the breastbone, and it should work well for you if you're wearing a chest rig or a plate carrier. Second, orientation of magazines. Now I understand a ton of different folks are teaching a ton of different things. That's alright. This is just another tool for the toolbox. One thing we teach here at T3 is consistency. What we like to see is if you're a right-handed shooter, obviously if you're left, just switch it up and reverse it. All of your magazines are going to be facing with the bullet tip towards the belly button or towards the center of your body as it goes through and then all the way through the right side of your body. Some places like to teach having an offhand magazine stowed the opposite way towards the inboard. So if you switch to that weak side transition, you can now utilize that magazine in a more orientated position. We don't generally teach that way, so we're not going to go there. That being said, let's talk about some things you can do very quickly to start getting yourself quicker on the magazine reloads as well as on swaps. First and foremost is gear setup. When you go to the range or you're at your house and you're just practicing around, start taking those magazines, looking straight up in front of you at your threat, at a dinner table, whatever the case is, a picture frame, I don't care what it is. Just start loading those magazines into your chest rig, your plate carrier. That's going to start building some of those fundamentals, so when you get on the gun with live ammunition, it's going to be a little bit quicker. Alright guys, so now we have our magazines oriented in the right position. We have a chest rig, battle belt, thigh rig, something on. Let's talk about some tactical reloads. Now there's tons of different options you have out there as far as techniques and options to implement a tactical reload. But what is a tactical reload? According to most doctrines, a tactical reload is a way to refill or restock the magazines inside of your gun or top them off in a low or in a lower threat situation in a gunfight or on the battlefield. Now I get there's a lot of minutiae around the definition and the time and place of a tactical reload, but regardless, it all arrives at the same answer. Now a tactical reload has one key fundamental on it that we at Trigger Time Training really try to teach, and that's keeping the magazine on body. You'll notice as I talk to you and start teaching this, I'm looking at the camera all of the time. I can practice this in any different method that I want, doesn't matter. I can be in my workspace, I can also be up online. I can do a magazine switch that's online, or I can do another technique. We're going to talk about those in just a second. Whatever the case, you're going to find cover, have or experience a lull in the gunfight, or maybe it's prior to going on a deployment where you might need to top off your magazines. Whatever the case, a tactical reload is generally going to be consistent in that matter. Now, here at Trigger Time, we have two different techniques we teach. The first one is probably a little bit more traditional, and that's essentially learning to change your magazines out using fine motor skill and manipulating both magazines at the same time. We call it the L7 technique. A bunch of different places have a bunch of different techniques. I'm going to turn to my side just a little bit so you can see. So if the gun is up, I can even utilize this technique in the actual online position or in a chicken wing. I'm going to take my new source of ammunition, keeping in mind I already have a loaded magazine and a loaded round in the chamber. No other manipulations are going to be required other than the switch. I'm going to take my magazine, grab my already inserted mag, rotate, and insert. This magazine is going to get retained. Next, we'll practice it again. Let's do it online this time. I bring the magazine out on index, I switch and accept, return, and then stow. Continue through the entire spectrum of your mags until you practice all of the different positions you may have to perform a tactical reload in. Now understand, you notice I probably glared at the magazine just for a split second. We don't ever intend even the most expert shooters to get to a point where they can always not look at the gun. Stress, combat, noises, and all different types of experiences are going to shape the way you reload your magazines. That real quick look at the magazine might just be a little bit quicker. Now let's talk about a second option we have. Like I said, that's what we call the L7 technique. Why? Well, when you switch the magazines, it starts with an L and then it switches to a 7, an L7. The second technique is called SSR, and that stands for strip, stow, and then reload. Or strip, stow, and refresh. Whatever the case, it's all the same. So what we're going to do here, same principle. Magazine's already loaded, round is in the chamber, it's half empty or almost all the way empty. I need to get a new 28 or 30 round magazine inside this gun. How do we do it? Simple, S. I'm going to take the magazine and strip it. It's going to go into my dump pouch. I'm going to grab a new mag and insert it. I have now reloaded. That is where the strip, stow, and reload comes from. Once again, strip into the dump pouch, stow, and reload back into the gunfight. Final, let's do it from here. Strip into the dump pouch. New magazine, reload. Strip, stow, retain, or reload. Those are the two options we teach at Trigger Time Training. There's a ton of other ones, just a few more tools for the toolbox. Next reload we're going to do is called a combat reload or a speed reloader. Once again, practicing the fundamentals. As I talk to the camera or you at home watching this, pay attention to a picture, a TV, whatever the case is, just don't look down at your gear. Get used to not having to look at it. Take them out and put them back in many times. It's going to really improve your gross motor skills and that fine motor muscle memory response. Combat reloads. Why do we use combat reloads? Several different options. One, there's no lull in the gunfight. Two, I don't have cover. Three, I need an immediate source of ammunition. Here's the caveat to a combat or a speed reload. The gun will run dry. So we're going to lock the bolt to the rear and act as if the gun is run dry. So what's going to happen here is as I perform that reload, there's a difference between this and tactical. Here's the main difference. The magazine's going to get shed. Now when you shed the magazine, we have a couple options. Some instructors and places will teach just to take the magazine and let it fall. That works most of the time. Magazines such as these P-Mags by Magpul generally are going to work well. The aluminum and steel magazines by HK and GI spec ones may not always function as designed. The second option is you can whip it out. Tons of different instructors are now teaching this method. We generally don't advocate it here, but it is a sound fundamental practice you can use. So if I take the gun, I'm going to assess the chamber to identify it is empty. Magazine is going to get thrown away from the actual gun, and I can now go into my combat reload. The third method we teach, and it's probably the most preferred, is a strip by manual use of the hand. So I'm going to take a magazine, put it in the gun. Gun comes up, I'm dry. All of a sudden I identify that the gun is now empty. I'm going to take that magazine with my offhand, in this case my left, strip it out, and find a new one and insert it quickly. Tons of different options you have there. Use one of them, pick it, and keep it consistent. Let me take a break real quick. We'll set this up and go live. Alright guys, now we're going to talk about some combat reloads or speed reloads with a little bit of practical application. Now to set this up, we have a couple different options that we need to consider. The first is, do I use live rounds, do I use dummy rounds, or no rounds? Understand if you use live rounds, comes with the idea that I have to be at a live fire range. If I use dummy rounds, I can manipulate the gun as if it was loaded. I just can't actually press and discharge the gun. If I don't use any rounds like I'm doing in this case, I lose one of the techniques that I can practice all of the time. We're going to talk about a couple of those techniques real quickly here. Now, assuming that I'm up on threat and I actually go dry, so let's bring the gun up. Hammer does not fall, or it does fall on a mashing trigger. I can do two things. One, I can trust my gun and feel that it's a spongy trigger, and I immediately know, oh shit, I need to reload. In that case, magazine comes out, new mag goes in, I'm going to grab the bolt release, send it forward, and continue to fight. Second option I have, gun comes up, spongy trigger. I assess the chamber to make sure it is indeed empty. I may have a stoppage or a malfunction that is not a reload. Whatever true techniques you choose doesn't matter. Just understand, keep it consistent. So that case, I assess the gun is empty. I bring the gun straight out, Find the new magazine, insert, grab the bolt lock, send it forward. That is one technique you can utilize. A second technique you can utilize, locking the bolt back. Here's the caveat. I need to have dummy rounds or I need to have live rounds in this case. Now I don't have any here, so I'm just going to demonstrate it and then you can go practice it. We get in this habit of using our bolt lock and bolt release to function and manipulate our bolt carrier group all of the time. It's taught in the military, taught in law enforcement. There's another technique we can utilize, and that's our charging handle. Now, what's the point of using a charging handle instead of a button that was designed to do the same job? Well, it's consistency over a spectrum of weapon systems. A pistol and a carbine are really not that much different when it comes to manual arms. If I can start treating my charging handle like the slide of a pistol, I now have two weapon systems I'm consistently and always practicing on, regardless of where I'm actually shooting. So if I bring the gun up on the gun, I discharge the gun, it's empty, I assess it's empty. Now what I do is I put the mag, strip it out, new magazine goes in. If it had a dummy or a live release, it would now work. I'm going to grab the charging handle and slip the gun forward. Understand it's not going to slip forward now because there is not a round in there, so I'm going to simulate it with the bolt lock. It now goes forward and I can get back on the thread. Let's do this live a few times so you can see how it actually works. Alright guys, so now it's time to practice this with some live fire. There's tons of different ways you can do this, but when you start practicing, let's keep it simple and basic. The first thing we're going to do is take all of our magazines, whether it's 2 or 5 in my case, doesn't matter. We're going to load them all with one round. You can also do this with dummy rounds if you want to practice the manipulation. Understand if you do that, the bolt is not going to lock to the rear on its own accord. So what we're going to do here, I'm going to go nice and slow. We're going to take in our workspace, load, and we do that by tapping and tugging, racking, chamber check, press check. Now the gun is loaded. So to begin this drill, we're going to come up on thread, safety comes off. The gun's going to discharge. The safety is now going to go back on. Strip the magazine out, new round goes in. Let's first do the bolt release. Bolt release is in, safety's off. Safety goes back on. Strip the magazine. New magazine goes in. This time let's do the charging handle. Charging handle forward. Safety on, out. Charging handle again. Put it in, charge it. All different techniques you can utilize. Bolt lock, bolt release, or the charging handle. One round per magazine, fire, reload, and continue that method. Let's go ahead and do this live without any breaks. Alright guys, so now we're going to do the same drill full speed without interruptions. Now understand when we do this drill, we need to focus on a couple things. Number one, keep it consistent. Number two, try your hardest not to look at your equipment or your gear when you're doing the reloads. I understand you may have to take a quick snapshot to index it and get it in there properly. That's fine. Let's just try not to make too big of a habit when it comes to it. So let's try this full speed. Once again, it's the 1x1 drill. In my case, 1x5 drill. Each magazine is loaded with one round. I'm going to shoot the first mag. It's going to go to bolt lock. Now I'm going to follow with all the rest of the magazines and do a speed reload. Here we go. Scan and assess on the way out, and that completes the drill. Alright guys, we're going to do the drill again. This time we're only going to utilize the bolt release to manipulate that bolt forward. One other thing I want to point out, I know I made mention of it earlier, I want to hit it again, is safety manipulation. If you notice, you can go slow play that if you have the capability to. You should see each time that I do a reload, whether it's tactical or speed, the safety is always going on. Now I understand different institutions and places may have different opinions. What we have found amongst our instructors in our experience is keeping that safety on as much of the time as possible will provide a more safe and efficient and reliable safety program for you and your teammates. So if you're moving around and you accidentally trip and fall, or you charge forward with your finger in the trigger, you don't discharge around. Now I understand you may have your own opinions. Let's keep that to a minimum on the comments because it's just another safety technique you can utilize to keep your team safe in a stack or if you're in a gunfight and you're at your house to keep your loved ones safe. Let's go ahead and operate this again, 1 by 5 with the bolt release manipulation. Magazine goes in, tap, tug, charge, press check, forward assist, wheels and dust cover. Here we go, guys. Assess on the way out. Alright guys, there you have it. We talked about the tactical reload, the combat or speed reload, a little bit of gear setup, and firearm manipulation. Now the final thing I'm going to talk about is not training yourself to this only drill. Understand, we're starting to build motor muscle memory each time we do a specific drill and manipulation. By creating this 1 through 5 drill each time, that's going to program me to always remember after the first round or at a preset location, you're going to do a speed reload. What I would suggest you do from here is take your magazines and start loading them to random counts. 1, 3, 7, 2, 5. Have a loved one, a teammate, or an officer fill those magazines for you that you don't know the counts to, load them in your magazines, and then go from there. What you should find is you're going to feel that spongy trigger, or if you choose to identify with the sweep and check in the chamber, whatever the case is, go ahead and conduct that speed reload. Just don't get in the habit of doing the 1 by 1 as your sole solution for this. There you have it, guys. Hope you enjoyed this video. Once again, I'm Mark Williams, Chief Instructor for Trigger Time Training in Longmont, Colorado. Find us at www.t3main.com. Have a great day.